What's up, y'all? So today the question is, how much protein do you eat? How many carbs do you eat? So essentially the question is, what are my personal macros? And I understand why people are asking me that, because I know when I started counting macros, I was on a mission, on a quest to find the perfect macro ratio. You know, I stumbled upon, 40% carbs, 20% fat, and 40% protein. And what I found was that macro ratio was typically for the guy that looked like he was juicing hard shit. This guy's taking 5 different compounds or something. Well, yeah, that's probably why he eats like 200 grams plus of protein, which is incredibly excessive. Typically I eat only about 150 grams of protein, and sometimes I undershoot a ton, guys, because if you guys have been following my videos, I am a real big advocate on just boosting growth hormone versus the macros now. In the past, when I started tracking my calories and I was on a quest to find the perfect macro ratio, I really believed in tracking my macros. I really felt like it made all the difference. Reason being is because that when you're using a conventional diet, it's so critical on what macros you're eating. The deficit and surplus need to be on point. It's just a much more critical atmosphere. And why do we want to find this perfect macro ratio? It's because we put this nutrition on a pedestal. I honestly think that nutrition doesn't build the muscle. I feel like being in the gym, being active, and frequently stimulating your muscles does muscle development actually occur. Obviously, if we feed ourselves the right potassium, carbs, fats, and proteins, we're going to optimize that development, but it's not going to develop the muscle for us in a sense. So in essence, if we keep our frequency high, if we boost our growth hormone, get enough sleep, and then supplement with the correct nutrients and food choices, we're going to optimize our muscle development. That being said, if you're not in the gym frequently and stimulating your muscles, the macro ratio isn't really going to benefit you that much. You're better off eating a bunch of vegetables and a bunch of high nutrient dense foods to get your balanced nutrients. I think a lot of people are thinking that the food is going to get them the muscle, but the muscle can only grow so quickly. And that's not even taking into consideration how your intensity is in the gym. So since we're on the topic of macros, people put the surplus on a pedestal, but I'm over here saying that it's just going to create more fat development. I can see where the novice comes into play, the novice perspective. They really think that the fat is muscle, but it's just, an extra layer of matter before you actually see your muscle. Because everyone can have the same striations and Dragon Ball Z shoulders where you just got all those splits and everything. It's just due to whether you have high body fat content or low body fat content. So back to the macro ratio, I like to keep it real simple. I explain this to a lot of people all the time because this is a very common question and it needs to be addressed. So 150 grams of protein, it's typical. If you weigh 200 pounds but you're cruising at 20% to 30% body fat, your real weight shredded is probably 150 pounds, maybe 160. This brings up a topic where I used to think that my very lowest weight was 160 pounds. Little did I know, I broke all the way down to 155 pounds, and I could have kept going, but I never really pushed it that far. So it's all just perspective. Like, you can think a certain way, but it doesn't change the fact that you don't actually weigh 200 pounds, you have 20 to 30% body fat content, and that your real weight is 150 pounds. My point is, 150 grams is a good average amount. Give or take, if you're a big guy, then take 160 to 170 grams of protein. My thought is that if you boost your growth hormone and keep your insulin low, because insulin and growth hormone are inverted. So when insulin is low, growth hormone is increased, and when insulin is high, growth hormone falls. That's just how I think. Like, the protein, it's there to optimize the development, but the real development is in the growth hormone when you go to sleep and you utilize intermittent fasting, for example. These are all going to put you in the right position to gain the most muscle, because there's so many moving parts. You got to keep your frequency of training high. You need to get your nutrition in, like your potassium and vitamins and minerals, and then you got to get your protein in, which is only like 150 grams. Sometimes I get 100 grams of protein, and I'm not even stressing about it because of my perspective. You know, I think about getting the good sleep. I think about prolonging my fasting so I get more growth hormone. We haven't really touched on carbs or fat, but it's a really simple explanation as well. If you eat more carbs, you're more likely to perform better in the gym. Carbs are the go-to source of energy for our body when we're not utilizing fat, ketones for energy. And when we eat the carbs, we're actually going to look fuller. Now, if you have a high fat diet, like the ketogenic diet, you're more likely to look shredded. You're not going to look as fluffy and full. And some people report that they're weaker when they have a high fat diet, but that's really due to their low potassium levels. And when you have low potassium, the glycogen can't be converted correctly. It's because when you have a lower amount of potassium, your body doesn't know what to do with the nutrients to create the right amount of glycogen, so your energy levels are going to be lower. Have the proper amount of potassium, then your glycogen storages are going to be at their optimal levels, meaning more energy. So in short, you know, keep your protein constant on a daily basis. We're keeping everything simple. Everything you do this on a daily basis. 150 grams of protein, and then let your carbs and fats fluctuate, because it really doesn't matter. This will open your food palette. You get a lot more food choices this way. And if you want to look fuller, just carb up for a day or two. If you want to get more shredded, then eat a high fat diet for a day or two, or on a weekly basis. You're going to see the changes. It's really just, it's actually kind of cool how instant it can be. You can just see your body change in 2 days because you're eating 300 grams of carbs now. I like to think of my body as something that just reacts to the food that I put into it. Alright, I'm out of here, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see y'all next video. Peace.